Hi, everybody. Constance Friedman with Modern Ventures. Welcome to our next speaker series. I am so honored to have Randy Fifield here. Say hi, Randy.
Hey, everybody.
Randy Fifield is absolutely a trailblazer. She has been designing, developing, and renovating projects, everything from the Chicago Civic Opera House to very modern towers in Chicago and other geographies. She's been doing this since the late 1980s, creating spaces that feel and just work better for people. She's been honored by the LA Lakers and Comerica Bank, as well as Businesswoman of the Year, everywhere, like in Chicago and Cranes, Connect Media's real estate honoree, and she's recently been published in HGTV as well as Traditional Home Magazine. Randy attended Northwestern University, and she is a board member there at Prentice Hospital and the Children's Memorial Hospital. And she is one of the people I really look up to as a mentor and a friend in the space. And thank you so much for joining us.
Right back at you, Constance. You've got it going on these days, girl.
So Randy, as you know, when we do these, we really like to tell the industry people out there, the tech, the entrepreneurs, like our audience about you, about what got you started, about what drives you, about the challenges that you've faced. We're all facing them. And I think it's just really helpful to see successful people like yourself and to hear about their journey. So why don't we start there? Would love to hear about your journey, what got you started, and kind of how you got to where you are today.
So one of the phrases that I coin is, live, work, and play. And my live, work, and play really started when I was a little girl. My parents were divorced. We moved to an apartment, and I was extremely observant. So we were space constrained. We had to, figure out a new way of life. I helped my mom wallpaper the kitchen. We put hooks on the back of the kitchen wall because there was no closet close by to that entryway. And then in those days, the dining room was super huge. But as a divorced mom, a divorced working mom, we weren't going to be entertaining. So we actually made what I like to call in, the late 60s and early 70s, which is really innovative for physical real estate, the first kitchen great room, because we could eat and then have this couch and watch TV. And it really worked for me and my mom. And we couldn't really afford a toy box. And so we took this really awesome box and we decorated it with stickers. And so, there it started, Randy Fifield Modern Living, very early on. And it actually, I didn't realize how much impact it had, because right now in the industry, we talk about the walk score, and that first apartment was strategically located. We actually selected it so that I could walk to school and my mom could be close to work, and we could go shopping. We could go to restaurants. We could go to the hardware store all on foot. So this is really, my destiny, if you will.
Where did you grow up, Randy?
I grew up in Rogers Park on the north side of Chicago. Yeah. And it was a really lovely neighborhood. And what was interesting, Constance, is that a lot of people, because really a lot of people weren't divorced, honestly, in the late 60s and early 70s. They would ask you, how are you doing? And I thought apartment living was way better than a house, because all of my friends had to, rake the leaves. They had to help on family day. The boys mowed the lawn. I got to go home to my apartment, and we had a janitor that did absolutely everything from washing the windows. So I was like, oh, I'm going to do this when I'm a grown up. I am going to create these lifestyles for other people, because this is the way to go.
And so from there, tell us about your journey. How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah. So, those things, when they happen to you, if you're lucky like I am, they make you tenacious. I was creative, I was curious, and it was in high school was my next big aha moment that I was elected president of my class. not wanting to be. People said, oh, put the names in the hat of who you think would be a good president. And then my teacher came to me and said, well, your name is selected for this ballot. And I said, oh, well, that's very nice of you, but I don't want to do that job. I really don't want to be president of this class. But anyway, it went up and I was voted in. And he was a great mentor. Bill Colson at Niles North High School was a tremendous mentor for me. And sometimes it's people that you meet along your journey that see in you things that you have no idea seeing in yourself. And this program taught me accounting. It taught me marketing. It was a distributive education class. I also loved summer school, ironically, just a natural weird thing about me. And so early in my actually, I think it was my junior year, my dean came to me and said, you're very lucky you could graduate early. And my parents said, she'll be 17. She cannot, we're not going to allow her to graduate early. In those days, you didn't go to college early or late. You just started in the fall like everybody else. And so they said, absolutely not. And so this program allowed me to leave school just a little bit early and to hone all these skills. So I think that working and trade schools are such a great thing, because I would never be who I was today if I didn't have that early start with getting all of that formative education. You were able to compete, you were able to learn advertising, you were able to learn a spreadsheet. And that was my next step. And then after going to college, I met a partner and he had a little bit of money and I had saved a little bit of money. And the very first deal that we did was an apartment building on an extra wide lot. We took a 4-flat, made it a 5-flat, and then we put in an $8,000 Danley garage, 3-car garage across the back, and really made a lot of money when I was very young. And he said, great, I'm going to medical school. And I said, great, I'm going to go and do my next deal. So that really started it all.
That's great. And so from then on, Randy, the real estate maven, was born.
It was, so it's been a circuitous path, because I'm a shapeshifter for sure. I started in apartments, and then I like to look for where the hole in the donut is. So then I realized that you could go downtown and people were building enormous houses. And instead of building an enormous house, I got the land and the 3-flat for free. So then I started deconstructing these things and making single family homes and knocked that out of the park. And you learn a lot of lessons. It's not like, oh, yay, everything goes simple. Your plumber doesn't arrive.
It doesn't go simple all the time. I can't believe it.
I know. But truthfully, you learn more from the hard knocks than you do from getting it right. Because when you get yourself in a pickle, then you have to figure out how to get yourself out of the pickle. And in those early days, you really went with like physical paper to your bank. And if your if your loan draw didn't meet up to the penny with actually every physical waiver and receipt in line, you did not get the money. So that was a big problem. And that's when I really realized I hated accounting. The design came easy. There are things that definitely come much easier, but that was horrible. But now we have technology. You bring us things all the time that, make our lives better that we didn't even know that we need. And luckily that was automated. So my life has gotten easier.
That's great. So let's go there for a minute. So talk about some of the projects that you're working on right now, and maybe you can talk a little bit about how you think about technology, and bringing that into what your design and what you're doing and making better spaces.
Yeah. So people think that, if they meet me, that technology is just something that's important in our buildings. But technology, yes, you need really fast Wi-Fi and you need to have all the bells and whistles in your building, but you really need it to design your projects, to market your projects. It's in every facet of our lives these days. And how wonderful is that? The pivot of the pandemic was so quick, because we were, and a pandemic was something a health issue was never something that Randy Fifield Modern Living was like, oh, let's be innovative and let's innovate and incubate about a pandemic. But people did really well in our buildings, and it allows us to upsize. You can look at a high rise, you can look at a mid rise, you can look at workforce housing. Technology today really is one of the cornerstones in all facets, and even managing the building, right? Because it's vertically integrated. And it used to be that you did this whole apartment tour and then you walk down to an office. Today, everything is on your iPhone. And so you can literally lease an apartment on floor 36. And you don't have to go back down. We have people that actually lease apartments from us that have never even come to the building. So, and you have to watch those applications, by the way, because there could be.
We have some technology for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you also have technology that leads to 3D printing with Icon. And, I love to see Lennar doing this because there's such a need. Now, municipalities won't always allow you to build those things. So kudos to the municipalities that allow you to use prefabricated housing and 3D printing. And the world needs to come a long way. My curiosity, I always say yes, tell me about this. Oh, I want to learn, tell me more. But when you go to some governments, they're really hardcore about not being open to innovation, which is a sticking point. As far as the projects that, for a long time, I was only a Chicago-based developer. And then when I talk about the shift, I realized that with second homes, I could make a lot of money if I went to Nantucket or if I went to Aspen. And the more you do, the more confident you get. So in the beginning, when you go to a new city, especially like an island like Nantucket, people ask you, you don't even own a fork. What makes you think you can build a house here or build a project here? And you say, well, I'm up to this challenge. I've done this before and I think I can do it. And then 6 projects later, you're going to another submarket. So 7 years ago, my funnest thing, today I'm in California, Denver, Chicago, Dallas, and Florida. So for a girl that started out in an apartment in Chicago, I seem to, have thrown my seeds every place, and it's nice to pollinate. I do have to say that. The other thing is that while I live, work, and play, I really don't love to stay in hotels. And so now that I'm longer in the tooth, about 7 years ago, I bought a condo in Miami because I wanted to learn about Coconut Grove and go to the art show. And I wanted to go on a boat to Brickell and do all of these really fun live, work, and play things. And, I like the sun. I like my bathing suit. I like to play with volleyball with my kids. And so I figured if I like to do these things, other people like to do these things too. And so Florida is my newest market. I've had a ton of fun there in the pandemic. When the pandemic first started, I was in LA and spending a lot of time doing TikToks in the backyard of my home and cooking with my kids. And then my mom got sick. So I thought, oh, well, I'll go take care of my mom in Phoenix. I just drove the car and did that and looked at the Phoenix market, which was really fun. And then thought, well, the pandemic is lasting and I have a lot of friends in Florida. I'm going to go back to Florida, and the kids would, come and go from there. But I am in 4 different submarkets of Florida now. Some are mid-rise and some are smaller projects because not one size fits all. And it's fun to move it around being a shapeshifter, but I'm absolutely loving it. And, it's, I was just at a Tiger 21 meeting yesterday, and some people are saying it's like drinking from a fire hose. And other people are saying liquidate. And I'm like, I don't know. I like my stuff. I could liquidate some of my stuff, but I didn't panic in the stock market fall of 2008 or the stock market debacle of like 2018 when the Feds, raised the rate. And I didn't sell anything. In fact, this is the weirdest, Constance. I met with my family office a few weeks ago and they said, it's crazy, because statistically your deals return about 22.9%. But this year, as of 3 weeks ago, my stocks and my portfolio has outperformed real estate. So that's like,
well, because you have Modern Ventures in your portfolio.
Exactly. Exactly. Co-creating with women has been awesome. And as there are times when people should be an employee. If you need somebody to tell you your narrative, be an employee. If you don't want to take the risk, be an employee. But if you want to put money in the game and sweat equity and sign guarantees and do things, you're an entrepreneur. And just like you and me bonded in Miami, actually was the first time we met, even though we were Chicago girls, that goes long and deep. And for that, I will be eternally grateful with the returns that you give and with the innovation, on 2 counts, and the friendship. I love seeing you for dinner and, seeing you out and about with the kids and meeting the hubby. But it's we live in a pretty awesome world today, even if it's changing at a really rapid pace and a little cuckoo. We're still blessed beyond measure.
I couldn't agree more on all fronts. So, maybe speak a little bit to some of the advice that you have for people who, because you're right. Like for some people, it's about being an employee, and for some people, it's time to start their own business. And like, how do you get the courage? How do you get the guts to make that shift? And you talked about having a little bit of money to throw in the beginning, and but that's where it starts. And how do you kind of get that courage and, I would say, confidence to make that choice?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think for me, I knew early on when things didn't go so well. The weird thing about being a kid in the 60s and the 70s is there were no lady role models, so that was really, even the principal of my grammar school and my high school was a guy. So, as a young girl with a boy's name, Randy, it was awkward. I really kind of struggled to figure out where I fit in the world. And especially having my parents divorce, you have to kind of like stand on your own 2 feet. So I think I was kind of shaped by the things that happened to me. And then, especially going through other people's designs, thinking like, that doesn't work. I could build it better and I could do it better. In the late 80s, today, you could go into a kitchen and they're like, oh, look, we've invented these shelves. Like, this is the new white bread of kitchens. I did that so long ago. And people thought, this girl is friggin' out of her mind that she has shelves in her kitchen, and instead of closing it all into a cabinet and shutting it. And they would start to say like, why did you do this? And I'm like, well, I just want to see what I have. And I think my dishes and all the things that I own are really fun and cool. And then I have one less thing to do when I don't have to open up the door and find it. And then Mick DiGiulio, who I'm also a huge fan of, for those that want shelves but didn't want to see them all the time, he invented which we actually have at Lux in Chicago. We have cabinets where you pull them up and you actually, like a file cabinet, store the doors above the cabinet. So you can design things and do it way better and be creative. And so that's what really pushed me to be an entrepreneur. Today, in some ways, I think it's easier to be an entrepreneur because there's so much more training. The other thing that was really mind-boggling was, in order to start being a developer, you needed a real estate license. There was no school, there was no Wisconsin, there was nobody that showed you real estate development like there is today. So you had to be even more of an innovator and figure it out. And then, of course, it's always a really funny story, and it still happens today. People will walk in and they'll say, well, I'm here to see Randy. And I walk in and we start the meeting and they're like, oh, wait, shouldn't we really wait for Randy to come? And I'm like, no, I am the Randy that you've waited or that you've come here to see. So them thinking that I was a guy doing, these projects. And then, you see this shapely blonde girl walk in and you're like, what? Like, how did that happen? That's so weird. And I've had great partners along the way. My first banker was Karen Case at CIBC. She was with a different bank way back then. So I think having a lady banker, if you're gonna, be an entrepreneur, she might understand your story and have compassion and empathy. Guys were much harder to win over early on. They did not want to lend me the money. And, Karen lent me almost $1 million when I was still in my 20s. And that was a really bold move. And I have never had a credit blip. I have never had a problem. You need to practice good communication, and you need to tell your story to everybody, not just your lawyer, not just your banker, not just your friends, but almost it becomes like, people will say, oh, you're going to be successful if you're passionate. That is not true. You could be passionate about a lot of things, but if you don't have a business plan, and if you don't follow a critical path and dot the I and cross the T, you could be a passionate train wreck and be broke. You really have to have discipline and confidence to get up and work it every single day, and show up, on the bad days, and take responsibility for what went wrong. Bad news faster than the good news. Good news is great, but the bad news is faster. And then, I always have like 3 slush funds. So you have your budget, and then you have your whoopsie daisy budget, and then you have your, oh my God, this is catastrophic, like, budget. And that's really saved me, the belts and suspenders. And then I often say belts and suspenders and rubber boots, because when the pipe breaks, your feet are going to be wet, and that's going to be really uncomfortable. So you have to have a lot of bells and whistles, and network as much as you possibly can with CEOs and chairmen and other people doing it, and be a consummate learner. I think, be curious about everything. And when you're not curious, pivot, because if you don't love multifamily, you might like senior housing. If you don't like senior housing, you might like offices. If you don't like offices, you might like tech or prop tech. So, your passion can sometimes lead you to something else. I think I'm rare that, I started in multifamily. Multifamily is all I've done. And I am so excited about 2022. And also, one of the questions that you had written to me was, hey, what makes you so excited about your projects? And honestly, my most favorite deal that I've ever done is always my next one. It's never my old ones.
Sounds familiar.
And yeah, that's hilarious, right? And then deals excite me for different reasons. So when I left Chicago, I was really excited to be like a pioneer on an island on Nantucket, or going to Aspen, or, and then when I innovated and I made or created these things, they were awesome. For K-Station, I was so excited about building a basketball court that we could play volleyball in, and that we had a huge amenity deck, and we had a cardio gym and a lift gym way before anybody else. And then we also had pool tables and all of these fun games and game rooms, and so everyone I get excited about. And today, like with crowdfunding, we didn't even talk about crowdfunding. That wasn't even a question. But, the finance portion of how you can put your deal on and like just watch the ticker and all these people, I'm like, oh my God, because money used to be a very hard thing, and you can get your money on CrowdStreet today, and you can recapitalize your deal on CrowdStreet. So, just the technological innovation of money and fintech is just one of the things that when I was a really young girl, that would have blown my mind to think that I'd be doing things like this, or learning about these things. But today it's really super exciting to see all of these facets and to understand how they work. And the last thing I think you need is your peers. Like you and I are peers. We met in a peer group, whether it's Tiger 21 or YPO or ULI. Get a lot of good people around you and support other women. You do not want to be the woman in the room that's talking badly about another woman. You want to be the woman in the room that's supporting or just being quiet, but moving the needle forward. If you're saying anything negative or doing anything negative about anything or anyone, you're taking a step back and you're not being your best self. So always put your best foot forward, be positive, stay positive, and just keep going. People will make mistakes. It's okay. Just keep going.
That's such, all of that is such great advice. So much to learn and live by. Randy, before I let you go though, there must be, what's the next big project that you're most excited about now?
Okay, this is going to be a curveball, because one of your other questions is we get to see you on Instagram, we get to see you in traditional home, but like, what's the real Randy? And Northern Trust, Ray Cepeda is one of my bankers, and he said, it's crazy that you're just so normal. You're just like such a real girl, like cooking around the house or walking with your dogs or hiking. But
let's talk about how many children you have, because that's also like a big, oh my gosh, are you serious?
Yeah, so five kids. And Alexa's in law school. Samantha's going back to UCLA for interior design. Katie just got into nursing school. Jack got into the business school at Endicott, and Nicole is in Chicago. And we are fingers crossed that she's going to go back. The pandemic, kind of threw us all for a loop. But they're all good kids, being of service, contributing positively. And I have to say that the projects are great and workforce housing is great, but the kids, are the very best thing. And I actually like the pandemic in a way that I got to slow down, be home, do those things. And the pandemic has changed me. And I do still get on a plane. I'm always, if I'm in your city, I will be at your job site or, in the management office or touring. One of the things that I like is that we don't really have to have an office anymore. So I actually do business meetings in my buildings, or I do business meetings at my home, or I'll walk with you. A lot of times I'll just invite people to walk. But the funnest thing that I am doing, I am unveiling So Randy Chardonnay. Because even though we live in a technological world and people love the technology, they really love the puppy parks and they love the liquor. They love to drink. So in my buildings, you'll be able to see So Randy wine, which is a really fun Chardonnay, which I got right out. I have a good palate. I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't misbehave, but I do have a really good palate. And so I grew a Chardonnay for the last 5 years, and it's really yummy. And the Pinot Noir, there was eucalyptus in the Pinot grapes. And so we oaked it, and then we put in some French Bordeaux freeze dried wine. So that's cheating a teeny bit. In America, we cheat when we make wine. And then we blended it with a Pinot de Pinot. But this is being unveiled December 4th with Chuck Arnaldi in his Venice studio. Chuck is like a living Andy Warhol of Venice, California. And so I'm having a little more fun with my projects these days, using technology, drones, doing all sorts of marketing. But I think the wine is the curveball for sure.
Well, I have been the lucky recipient of some of your wine before, and so I'm looking forward to trying the So Randy Chardonnay and the Pinot.
So the hard part is 2020, like the pandemic, 2019, 2020, and California has been on fire for a year. Literally. And Sonoma and Napa have really been hit hard. It was easier and better for those winemakers to call the insurance company. So Randy and Randy Fifield Vineyards did fine. So unfortunately, the hard part for me is my vineyard is tiny. So I am not going to send out the wine this year. The Arnaldis are also, Ryland from Wrapped has agreed to do a very beautiful artistic label. And we're drinking everything that we're produced at that party. So nothing's going to be sent out this year, but next year you're on my list. And I'm definitely sending you a Christmas card.
All right, I'll let it pass this year.
Okay, thank you. Or come to California and drink.
Or I'll come to your party, yes.
You are invited. You are all invited to my party if this airs before December 4th. Just, contact me about an invitation.
All right. Anything else, Randy? I mean, you've just been like such a great guest. I mean, I'll just say one thing. I mean, like, you're just a true inspiration. I mean, like, it's, people say they can't have it all, but, I think you're just someone that kind of shows that you can, and that it's about hard work and perseverance and, not doing what people necessarily expect of you, and having fun at doing it.
Thank you so much. I have had a blast. I have really been blessed in my life to do and experience as much as I have. And truthfully, I'm even grateful, like I said before, for the hard things, because I think that those things have made me a better person. And I think when you see people persevere, whether it's through, tough financial times or building issues or things like that, you really get to see who they are at their core. You get to see them at their best self, because their resiliency, their ability to be humble, to stay grounded, and then of course, the comeback and the pivot, which is really what's inspiring when you're watching somebody else do the pivot, or invite you. I mean, I met you at a very critical time in your business, and you gave me such a lovely invitation to come and pivot with you. And I was like, okay, I'm going to say yes. So, say yes and keep going. And, the world is moving and shaking, but, have a little fun and move and shake with it too. And right back at you. You are just tremendous.
Thank you so much, Randy. And thank you, everybody, for joining our speaker series again. And we look forward to seeing you again next time. Thank you again.
Bye.